They say love is a choice, but obsession is engineered. And no one understood this better than Niccolo Machiavelli. The man who wrote The Prince wasn't just talking about politics. He was talking about control, human control. The kind that seeps into the mind of another person until they can't think, can't move, can't even breathe without you occupying their mental space. Today, we step into the shadows of Machiavelli's philosophy, not for romance, not for shallow attraction, but for power. Because when someone is obsessed with you, you have influence over their thoughts, their choices, even their freedom. And this is the art Machiavelli perfected. Let's start with the first rule. Never give all of yourself. See, ordinary people believe closeness creates love. They think if they pour their heart out, if they give everything, they will secure loyalty. But Machiavelli knew the opposite. Giving too much kills desire. Imagine fire. What happens when you suffocate it with too much wood, too much weight, too much force? It dies. The same happens in relationships of any kind, romantic, social, or political. When you give endlessly, you remove the mystery. You remove the hunger. And hunger is what breeds obsession. So the Machiavellian strategy is simple. Give a little, then withdraw. Offer warmth, then turn cold. Be available, then vanish. This is the weapon of absence. Think about it. What dominates the mind more? The person who's always present, always accessible, always predictable? Or the one who disappears, leaving unanswered questions, gaps, and silence that echo louder than words? Absence creates imagination. Imagination fuels obsession. And when the mind starts filling in blanks, it begins to weave stories about you, your intentions, your mystery. The less you reveal, the more they invent. And the more they invent, the deeper they sink. Machiavelli also taught that power comes not from what you give, but from what you withhold. If you want to create obsession, you must understand one truth. Scarcity is more powerful than abundance. Psychology confirms this. When something is scarce, our brain labels it as valuable. When attention is scarce, when affection is scarce, when presence is scarce, it feels precious, like gold. This is why silence is louder than words. Why distance creates magnetism. Why unpredictability sparks desire stronger than consistency ever could. Your absence should not feel like emptiness. It should feel like weight, like a gravitational pull dragging their mind back to you again and again. Let me give you a picture. Imagine a ruler in Renaissance Italy. He has courtiers, advisors, even lovers constantly circling him. Everyone wants his attention, but he does not give it freely. He grants only fragments. A brief glance here, a word there, a single night, then silence for weeks. What happens? Those who want him become restless. They replay every word he spoke. They analyze every gesture. They crave the next encounter because it is rare, unpredictable, uncontrollable. They become obsessed. And that is how Machiavelli's strategy works in real life. Not through force, not through giving everything, but through strategic withholding. So if you want someone to think about you constantly, you don't flood them with your presence. You don't prove yourself. You don't beg for their attention. Instead, you give them silence. You give them distance. You give them just enough light to spark interest, then enough darkness to make them wonder. This cycle, presence and absence, warmth and coldness, traps the mind. It overrides logic and replaces it with obsession. And this is only the beginning. Machiavelli's genius wasn't just about silence or distance. It was about weaving an invisible web, a system of psychological triggers that make another person feel powerless against their own desire. In part 2, we'll dive deeper into the next stage, unpredictability. Because nothing hooks the human mind like uncertainty. If absence plants the seed of obsession, Unpredictability makes it grow. Stay with me. The game is only beginning. Absence plants the seed of obsession. But seeds do not grow on their own. They need the right conditions. And the condition that makes obsession bloom faster than anything else is uncertainty. Machiavelli understood a brutal truth about the human mind. We are addicted to unpredictability. What we cannot predict, we cannot stop thinking about. Think about it. When someone is reliable, when every action is predictable, when every response is guaranteed, they become safe. Safe feels good, but safe does not create obsession. Now compare that to someone who gives you affection one moment, then vanishes the next. Who smiles at you today, but tomorrow seems distant, unreadable, mysterious. Who rewards you sometimes, and withholds it other times. Your brain enters overdrive. It craves explanation. It craves control. But because it never fully gets it, it loops. It obsesses. This is the same principle casinos use. The slot machine doesn't reward you every time. It rewards you randomly, unpredictably. And because you never know when the next win will come, you keep pulling the lever. Machiavelli's version of this? The unpredictable ruler, the unpredictable lover, the unpredictable presence. Unpredictability is power because it creates tension, and tension is addictive. Imagine this. You send a message, hours pass, no reply. Your mind starts spinning. Are they ignoring me? Are they busy? Do they care? Then suddenly a response, short, mysterious. No closure, no clear answer, just enough to pull you back in. You're trapped, not because of what they gave you, but because of what they didn't. Machiavelli wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." Why? Because fear is tied to unpredictability. Fear comes when you cannot predict outcomes, when you never know if the prince will reward you or punish you. In relationships of power, fear and desire often dance together. And when someone fears losing you, fears your silence, fears your withdrawal, that fear twists into obsession. Picture this in courtly life. A powerful duke enters the room. Sometimes he greets his allies warmly. Sometimes he walks past them without a glance. Sometimes he rewards loyalty. Other times he punishes it without explanation. His courtiers live in a constant state of tension. They never know what mood he will bring, what fate awaits them. So they think of him day and night. They replay every word, every action, trying to decode the mystery. This is obsession, born not from love, but from uncertainty. Modern psychology confirms this Machiavellian principle. It's called intermittent reinforcement. Rewards, given unpredictably, create the strongest attachment. It's why gamblers can't quit, why addicts can't stop, why people become trapped in toxic relationships. They are addicted not to love, but to unpredictability. One day you give them warmth, the next, nothing. One day you are available, the next, gone. One day you open the door, the next, you slam it shut. And the more uncertain they feel, the more addicted they become. So, how do you use this? Be unreadable. Do not let your patterns be predictable. Give, then take away. Reward, then withdraw. Be warm, then cold. Never allow someone to map your behavior. Never allow them to know your next move. Because the moment they can predict you, you lose your hold on their mind. Machiavelli knew this secret weapon. It's why the greatest rulers, seducers, and power brokers in history were never consistent. They gave the world just enough hope to keep chasing, but never enough certainty to feel safe. And when people don't feel safe, when they live in constant doubt, when their hearts race with questions they cannot answer, obsession is the only outcome. Absence creates the hunger. Unpredictability fuels the addiction. But there is still another piece, the weapon that locks the chain forever. And that weapon is power through silence. Because words can be forgotten, but silence echoes. And in that echo, people hear their own fears, their own desires, their own stories, all pointing back to you. In part 3, we'll uncover Machiavelli's deadliest trick, how silence dominates louder than speech, and how it makes others obsess without you lifting a single finger. Stay with me. The darkness runs deeper. Silence. The most underestimated weapon of all. Machiavelli understood something most people still don't. Words lose power the moment they're spoken. But silence? Silence multiplies power. Because in silence, the mind fills the void. And what it fills it with is often more powerful, more haunting, more obsessive than anything you could have ever said. Think about it. When someone insults you and you fire back, the game ends. The energy is released. But if you remain silent, if you hold the stare, if you let the insult hang in the air unanswered, the weight shifts. Suddenly, they are the ones who feel exposed, uncertain, uneasy. Silence forces the other person to battle their own thoughts. They replay what they said. They question themselves. They wonder, what are you thinking? Why didn't you respond? What does your silence mean? This mental loop doesn't stop when you walk away. It lingers. It festers. It becomes obsession. Machiavelli would say, the ruler who speaks too much reveals his hand, but the ruler who withholds, who leaves his court in silence, is feared. Why? Because silence is not emptiness. Silence is a mirror. And in that mirror, people see their own doubts, their own fears, their own desires reflected back at them. Your silence forces them to imagine, and imagination is always stronger than reality. Modern psychology confirms this. We humans hate uncertainty. We crave closure. And when closure is denied, when someone refuses to explain, refuses to answer, refuses to break silence, the brain obsesses. It creates stories. It plays out scenarios. It invents explanations that keep looping endlessly. This is why silence after intimacy drives people mad. This is why ghosting cuts deeper than an insult. This is why the person who withholds their words often holds the most power. Picture this in the Renaissance court. A courtier offends the prince. The courtier expects rage, or punishment, or at least a sharp reply. But instead, days pass. No word, no glance, no sign. The courtier cannot sleep. He wonders, does the prince plan revenge? Has he been forgiven? Is he being watched? Every silence is a question. Every unanswered moment is torture. Until finally, the courtier bends. He offers gifts. He offers loyalty. He begs for acknowledgement. And all the while, the prince has said nothing. The silence did the work for him. So how do you use this in life? When you're accused, stay silent. Let the other person over-explain, over-justify, dig their own hole. When you're tested, stay silent. Don't rush to prove yourself. Power doesn't explain itself. When you're desired, stay silent at key moments. Don't always answer immediately. Don't always reveal your feelings. Hold something back. Because what you don't say is remembered longer than what you do. And here's the real secret. Silence makes people project their own insecurities onto you. If they fear abandonment, your silence feels like abandonment. If they fear rejection, your silence feels like rejection. If they crave your love, your silence feels like proof that they're losing it. You didn't lift a finger. You didn't say a word. And yet they are trapped in obsession. That is Machiavelli's genius. Not winning with force, but letting others destroy themselves with their own imagination. Absence creates hunger. Unpredictability fuels addiction. And silence chains the mind. But silence alone is not enough. To make obsession permanent, to etch yourself into someone's soul, you must master one more art, the weapon of contrast. Because obsession grows strongest not when you're always distant, always cold, always silent, but when you mix cruelty with kindness, distance with intimacy, silence with sudden, intoxicating bursts of attention. This is the push and pull of Machiavellian power. And in Part 4, we'll go even deeper into how contrast keeps people addicted forever. Stay tuned. The game is only beginning. Contrast. The most dangerous, the most addictive force in human psychology. Machiavelli knew people don't crave consistency. They crave the roller coaster. The highs, the lows, the sudden shifts that leave them gasping for more. Because obsession doesn't grow in stability. Obsession grows in chaos. Think about it. If someone is always kind, always present, always predictable, we stop noticing. We take them for granted. But the moment kindness is interrupted with coldness, the moment warmth turns into ice, the mind spirals. Did I do something wrong? Why are they distant? What changed? This uncertainty makes people desperate. And when they've lost hope, you give them kindness again, the effect is intoxicating. The brain learns to associate you with both pain and relief. And that is the formula for addiction. Psychologists call this intermittent reinforcement. It's the same principle that makes slot machines irresistible. Not every pull brings a win. But sometimes, unpredictably, it does. And that sometimes keeps people hooked far longer than a guaranteed reward ever could. Machiavelli would never say, always be kind. He would say, give enough kindness to keep them chasing and enough coldness to keep them desperate. It's the unpredictability that enslaves the mind. Picture the Renaissance palace. A noble woman waits for the prince. Yesterday, he showered her with gifts, whispered words of affection, made her feel like the only woman in Florence. Today, nothing. No visit, no letter, no glance. She burns with confusion. Has she lost his favor? Has he replaced her? Days later, just as her despair peaks, he arrives unannounced. A single smile, a single touch, and suddenly she's reborn. That relief, that contrast, cements the obsession. Now, she doesn't just want him. She needs him. Because only he can give her release from the torment he created. How do you use contrast in your own life? Mix warmth with distance. Be generous one moment, aloof the next. Don't always reply right away. Don't always be available. Alternate intimacy with silence. After a deep conversation, disappear for a while. After affection, pull back slightly. Reward unpredictably. If someone pleases you, don't always show it. Sometimes praise them, sometimes ignore their effort. This uneven rhythm keeps them guessing, and the more they guess, the more they chase. Here's the hidden truth. When people experience both joy and pain from the same source, they bond deeper. Why? Because their mind starts to associate you not just with pleasure, but with relief. And relief from pain is one of the strongest forms of psychological attachment. This is why toxic relationships are so hard to escape. The same person causes the wound and provides the bandage. The cycle becomes unbreakable. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He knew that giving and withholding strategically creates not love, but devotion. But let's be clear. This is not about cruelty for cruelty's sake. It's not about random neglect or pointless coldness. No, it's about strategy. About deliberately controlling the rhythm of attention. About knowing when to give and when to take away. Because if you're only cold, people leave. If you're only warm, people get bored. But when you master contrast, they cannot escape you. And that is how obsession is forged. not in constant attention, not in endless affection, but in the dance between presence and absence, kindness and cruelty, attention and silence. This is the Machiavellian push and pull, the rhythm of desire, the chaos that binds the mind tighter than chains. But there's another layer, a deeper, darker weapon, because it's not enough to control someone's emotions in the moment. If you want true obsession, you must invade their thoughts when you're not even there. You must become unforgettable, not through presence, but through absence, not through words, but through the imprint you leave behind. In Part 5, we'll unlock this final art, how to haunt someone's mind so completely they cannot escape you even in their dreams. Obsession doesn't live in the moments you're together. It lives in the silence that follows. If you want to make someone obsessed, you must master the art of psychological haunting. You must become the thought they cannot silence, the shadow behind their eyelids, the ghost that follows them into their dreams. Machiavelli understood this truth. Power is not about presence. Power is about being remembered when you're gone. Think about it. Anyone can charm when they're standing in front of you, but the true masters are the ones who linger long after they've left. It's not your touch they crave, it's the absence of your touch. It's not your words they replay, it's the silence after your words. This is why kings, seducers, and rulers always left a trace of mystery, a missing piece, something unsaid, unfinished, unanswered, because the human mind cannot resist the puzzle. It keeps returning over and over, desperate to solve it. Here's what you must understand. The brain hates unfinished business. Psychologists call it the Zeigarnik effect, the tendency to remember incomplete experiences more than complete ones. If a conversation ends abruptly, if a story is left unfinished, if a promise hangs in the air unfulfilled, the mind replays it endlessly, trying to resolve what was left open. Machiavelli didn't have neuroscience, but he had wisdom. He knew the best way to stay unforgettable is not to give closure. Leave doors half open. Leave questions unanswered. Let them obsess over the silence you've created. Imagine a courtier in Florence. He's captivated by a powerful woman, elegant, sharp, untouchable. One night, she speaks with him. Her eyes linger a moment too long. Her smile is faint, deliberate, layered with meaning. And just as he leans closer, she withdraws. She leaves the room without explanation. Now, he's trapped. Did she mean something by that look? Was it an invitation or a dismissal? Is she interested or is she laughing at him? He replays every second, every word, every glance. And in his replaying, she grows larger. She becomes his obsession not because she gave everything, but because she gave almost nothing. So how do you make someone haunted by you? How do you make your presence echo in their absence? Leave conversations unfinished. End the discussion before it feels complete. Say, "I'll tell you later," then don't. Their mind will keep circling back, desperate for the missing piece. Use silence strategically. After a powerful statement, pause. Let the silence speak louder than the words. Plant emotional anchors. Associate yourself with strong emotions, laughter, mystery, tension. Then withdraw suddenly. Their brain will replay the moment endlessly, searching for more. Control what you reveal. Never explain yourself fully. Let them guess. Let them interpret. The less they know, the more they think. This is not about noise. It's about silence. It's about creating gaps the mind cannot stop trying to fill. Understand this. A person does not obsess over what is clear. They obsess over what is unclear. Not the truth, but the mystery. Not the gift, but the absence of it. Not the embrace, but the distance. When you give half and hide half, you trigger the imagination. And the imagination is more powerful than reality, because reality ends, but imagination never does. But there is danger here. If you vanish completely, you become forgotten. If you give too much, you become ordinary. The art is balance. Appear, disappear. Speak, then withhold. Give just enough to spark the flame, then withdraw to let it burn in your absence. That's how you haunt the mind. That's how you live rent-free in someone's head. Machiavelli knew the most powerful chains are invisible. And the strongest prison is not built of walls, but of thoughts. When someone thinks of you more than they wish to, you own them. When your silence speaks louder than their words, you control them. And when your absence is more powerful than another's presence, you have achieved true obsession. But there's one final step. A step Machiavelli reserved for the masters. Because obsession is not just about making someone crave you, it's about ensuring they depend on you. That without you, they feel powerless, lost, incomplete. In Part 6, we'll reveal the ultimate Machiavellian move. How to turn obsession into dependency, and dependency into control. Obsession is powerful, but obsession alone is fragile. Someone can be obsessed today and forget tomorrow. They can crave you in silence, and then suddenly find a new distraction. Machiavelli knew this. That's why he didn't just stop at obsession. He transformed obsession into something deeper: dependency. Because when someone depends on you emotionally, mentally, or even socially, they are no longer free. They are bound. They cannot leave, even if they want to. This is the final step. The transformation of fleeting obsession into lasting control. So what is dependency? Dependency is not just when someone wants you. It's when they feel they cannot function without you. It's when their emotions are tied to your presence. When their confidence rises and falls with your approval. When their happiness depends on your attention. Obsession makes them think about you. Dependency makes them need you. And once they need you, you are no longer optional. You are essential. That is the deepest form of power. Picture a ruler in Renaissance Italy. He doesn't just want loyalty from his advisors. He wants dependency. So he gives them privileges they cannot find elsewhere. Wealth, titles, protection. But here's the twist. He gives them just enough to taste, and then he makes sure they understand without him, it all disappears. Soon, they don't just serve him because they respect him. They serve him because without him, they would be nothing. This is the essence of dependency. To make someone fear not losing you, but losing who they are without you. Now, let's bring this into human connection. How do you transform obsession into dependency? Control their highs and lows. Give attention, then withdraw. Offer warmth, then turn cold. This roller coaster ties their emotions to you. They crave the high of your approval and dread the low of your silence. Be their source of validation. Let your words carry weight. A single compliment from you must feel like gold, and your disapproval like thunder. Soon, their self-worth becomes tied to your opinion. Create scarcity. Be rare, not constant. Make your presence a reward, not a guarantee. Scarcity makes every interaction feel precious and irreplaceable. Mirror their desires, then withhold fulfillment. Show them you understand their deepest needs, but do not give it all. Let them always feel they are almost there with you but never fully arrived. This is the psychological trap. The more they chase, the more they depend. Understand this. Dependency is built not through abundance, but through withholding. Not through constant presence, but through controlled absence. When you give everything, you lose power. When you give strategically, you become irreplaceable. It is not kindness that binds people. It is fear of loss. It is the quiet terror that without you, they are incomplete. This is not romance. This is warfare of the mind. And Machiavelli was its general. Think of the lover who always gives too much, always available, always giving, always chasing. What happens? They are taken for granted. They are forgettable. Now, think of the one who appears and vanishes, who gives affection in small, intoxicating doses, who never gives everything just enough to keep you starving for more. That is the one who owns your thoughts. That is the one you cannot let go. That is the one who creates dependency disguised as desire. So if you want to turn obsession into dependency, here are the Machiavellian steps. Anchor their emotions to you. Make your presence equal joy. Make your absence equal pain. Withdraw before satisfaction. Never let them feel complete. Keep them chasing. Control the rhythm. You set the tempo of communication, interaction, and connection. They must adapt to your rhythm, not you to theirs. Be the source, not the seeker. They come to you for attention, approval, and validation. Never the other way around. Let scarcity do the work. Give just enough to keep them alive, but never enough to set them free. Do this, and you are no longer just desired. You are depended on. But let me remind you, this path is not light. It is dark. It can destroy as easily as it can empower. Dependency is a dangerous gift. In the wrong hands, it becomes cruelty. In the right hands, it becomes unmatched influence. Machiavelli never believed in morality as a shield. He believed in strategy as a sword. Use this sword with precision, or you will cut yourself. And so, we arrive at the end of Machiavelli's strategy. From absence comes desire. From mystery comes obsession. From obsession comes dependency. And from dependency comes ultimate control. This is not love. This is not kindness. This is power raw, strategic, and absolute. When someone cannot think without you, you own their mind. When they cannot feel whole without you, you own their soul. That is the Machiavellian art of making anyone obsessed. And once you master it, you'll never chase again, because they will be chasing you forever.